Bob Ohrablo is the team president to the brand new sports franchise here in Jacksonville, Florida, called the Jacksonville IceMen. Now, this is a team that has moved from Evansville, Indiana, down to Jacksonville, Florida, to the Sunshine State, and I had a chance to talk with him about what it's like to move a franchise from one city across the country, completely different weather, completely different terms, but the same league and in a town that has had hockey since 1967, I believe. Anyways, we get back into the story here in the interview, and you can catch the full story after this interview is done in the latest edition of Void magazine. That's the sports issue. Pick it up anywhere across the First Coast. If you don't have a copy of it and you want to see a copy of it, I'll be sure to send one along to you. But here is my chat with the team president of Jacksonville's newest sports franchise, Bob Ohrablo. But tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you based out of Jacksonville now?
Well, I'm here most of the time now. Yeah. My main house is still in Orlando. And we'll be up there at some point soon. So, but ever since we made the announcement, things have really been busy, and the goal is to grab the business as you can and focus on that.
Oh, I absolutely. I can imagine you guys are definitely have a lot more things than a typical off-season preparation wise. I can only imagine what you guys have workload wise.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I went through this in Orlando. I was the part of the group that led the Solar Bears coming back to Orlando. So I've been through it. I've been through a startup a couple of times now in Syracuse as well, and so you get it down. But what's different here has been the reaction by the fans. Quite honestly, I mean. We're a little over 1,400 season tickets already, and we were planning on 1,500 by the time the season started, and we still have almost 3 months. So
wow.
That's been an awesome response.
Yeah, definitely. Hockey goes way. I'm sure you know this, but we have a long history with hockey here in Jacksonville. Yeah. So I'm personally very excited for hockey to be back here in Jacksonville. Just to give you sort of a background on me, I was involved in the hockey world about 10 years ago for a handful of years, and then I settled back down in Jacksonville. There's a local magazine.
Where was that?
About 10 years ago, I was involved with the SPHL. So whenever they were in town, I grew up being a Lizard Kings fan and all that, but involved with the SPHL mostly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But then moved back to Jacksonville, got a gig with Void magazine, which is who I'm doing the story for today, or for their upcoming sports issue. Every year that annually they have a sports issue where they cover all of the pro sports in town. So the Jaguars, the Shrimp, and now that will include you guys. So when they approached me about Yeah, so when they approached me about doing a sports issue, I was like, I have to do a story on the IceMen. It's just going to be so good. So I'm super, super passionate about this.
It really, it's funny. I've studied the market and as we're putting this together for a good year and a half, I think almost 2 years actually. And one of the things I saw, I went to Sharks games. I went to, at that time they were the Suns games, Armada, and just saw the enthusiasm that people had here for their sports teams, and then obviously we studied the migration into Jacksonville and where it was coming from, and a lot of it was coming from the Northeast and from the Upper Midwest, and those are primary hockey markets. So I think we seems as though we've hit the nail on the head here, and really chose a market that, quite honestly, as I got into it, I couldn't believe didn't have a hockey team in it. So I'm glad we beat anyone else to it.
Well, speaking of bringing a franchise to the city of Jacksonville, how do you move a franchise from one city to another? Is anything kept from the old city, if anything, or is it sort of like you're starting fresh?
We're pretty much starting fresh. we wanted to bring the name down. The Icemen had a good run in Evansville. The only thing that the only reason the team isn't there is because the city and our partner Ron Gary couldn't reach an agreement on a lease renewal, and they were going to get a lease that was going to put them in probably the top 2 or 3 most expensive leases in the league in one of the smallest markets. So I had been working on Jacksonville before that, and when Ron heard the plans for Jacksonville, he said, "Why don't we combine efforts?" And here we are today. So in terms of, they didn't play this past season, so when he suspended the teams to give us time to set up here, they didn't keep any players or coach or anything. So it's almost like buying an expansion team from the league. The nice thing about this league is that everybody pretty much rebuilds themselves every year. The players either move up or move out, or very few teams have more than 4 or 5 guys left on a year-to-year basis. So we're really not starting behind the 8 ball as far as that goes. Also, in learning, from experience and stuff, I wanted to get, obviously, the most important position we have is our coach and the guy who runs the hockey operations. And we were fortunate enough to be able to pick up Jason and Jason Christie, and Jason's the winningest coach in ECHL history. So he's built teams every year. And out of his 14 seasons coaching in this league, he's made the playoffs 11. So,
wow.
So we figured we might be a little bit behind the 8 ball, but bringing a guy in like that players around the league know and want to play for, and NHL partners know and want to be with, that any behind the 8 ball we were. We would catch up with bringing somebody in with that experience and that reputation.
So walk me through the process of building your coaches. Does it really just all start with the head coach, and then he builds his team of assistants and equipment manager, and then starts bringing in the scouting department? Yeah,
the on ice team is headed by Jason, who's our VP of hockey operations and coach. We don't have a big staff on that side. He'll bring in 1 or 2 assistant coaches who he's working on now, and then the trainer is usually supplied by the local hospital, and we're working on those deals now. And then the equipment manager, that'll be somebody that he either knows or somebody he knows will come in and build the equipment program. So it's really a 3 or 4 person operation, the hockey side of things here in this league. We don't really have scouts. Jason brings with him an incredible relationship with the Winnipeg Jets. He's worked with them the past 9 years, and the Manitoba Moose, their AHL team, which is the same company. So what we'll do is their scouts will be on the look for players for us, but most of the guys that Jason will sign will be guys that he either knows or knows of just by being in the league for so long. So in terms of scouting, there's very little bit of scouting done in this league, and most of that is dependent upon the relationship you have with your NHL team.
So
they have big scouting departments, so they're out looking at games all year long at every level.
When it comes to actually building the roster, do you guys just use, I don't want to call it like a funnel system, but essentially, the guys that essentially don't make the NHL or the AHL, are you taking those guys, or is there going to be some kind of an expansion draft or a supplemental draft to replace an entire roster essentially?
Yeah, there's not an expansion draft in this league. And again, like I said, most of the rosters turn over pretty good every year. Our players will come from several different sources. We'll get anywhere from 4 to 6 players from from Winnipeg that'll be under contract to the Jets or the Moose, and those guys will be here under loan agreements. Then the rest of the team becomes finding players that have either played with Jason before and became free agents. Most guys in this league don't sign. There's very few guys that sign more than a 1-year contract. So once those players become available, they played for teams last year. Most of them become, if they haven't gotten an offer from that team that they've accepted, they become free agents on, in a few days, July 31st. And he'll take some guys from there. And then there's the young prospects, guys that have played in college or juniors, and may not have been signed by an NHL club yet. But are looking for their first job in the professional ranks, and again through a network of relationships he has with coaches in the juniors, as well as coaches in the college, and agents. These guys all get agents. There's an incredible network of agents that will send players his way to look at. So we'll have plenty of choice when it comes to players. And again, hiring someone with his reputation who has had many guys go up from that he's coached, or when they've sent players down, they've gotten better because of his coaching. That helps.
And it sounds like the hiring of Jason was a very crucial one for this franchise. Mm-hmm. Why was he the man to lead this ship out of all the other candidates interviewed?
Well, we looked at several things. One is you can't deny his record. I mean, he's again last year he passed the mark for the winningest coach in ECHL history. He's dedicated to this league. He loves building teams because you really, as a coach in this league, you're not only coaching, but you're building the team. Where in the American Hockey League, you're getting your team from the NHL. Almost all your players are under contract to the NHL. So here you've got, as a coach, it's almost like being a college coach. You're recruiting and you're coaching all at the same time. And he likes that challenge a lot. So that was the first thing, the success he's had. The second was his relationships with several NHL teams, mainly the top one being the Winnipeg Jets. So I think those are the two key reasons. And the third was just the types of team he's built in the past. If you look at the Ontario Reign, which is where he was for 4 seasons and had a lot of success, they led the league in goals, they led the league in wins, and they led the league in penalty minutes. So nice. So we want a very exciting team for fans to watch that scores a lot of goals, and can mix it up and as well. So those are the kinds of teams that sell tickets. I wasn't looking for a coach to come in here and be the best defensive team in the league. I wanted us to be able to win in a very explosive fashion, and that's what we're building here.
Absolutely. So how soon will you guys start signing your players? Do they funnel through the affiliated teams, or will they start? We're coming to camp soon. The guys we're getting from Winnipeg, we won't know who they are until they get to Winnipeg's camp. Usually by the second week of camp, they'll send guys. They'll send a bunch of guys to the American League, and then guys to us as well. So we won't know who they are until right before our camp opens, which will be October 2nd. And the rest of the guys will start signing within the next, maybe as early as next week. What you try to do is you sign guys a little bit later in the summer because those guys, the best players that are available, become available July 31st, and also may wait a little while because they want to see if they can get an American Hockey League deal, and then if they find out they're not going to get an American Hockey League deal, they'll start looking at the ECHL. So those are the better players. So the later you sign the players, usually, the pool is not as big. The talent gets much more intense. So one advantage that the IceMen already have is that they have an affiliation with the Jets and the Moose. Can you explain why these affiliations are so important to the IceMen?
Yeah, it's funny because everybody wanted us to sign with one of the Florida teams, the Tampa or Florida, at least Tampa was already booked from past arrangements. But B, we really wanted to bring in our coach and let him make that decision. Again, he's worked with Winnipeg for 9 years now. He's made the playoffs 7 of those 9 years. And they trust him, he trusts them. So, like any business, when you build a relationship with somebody, that's an edge for you. The second thing about Winnipeg is that I think it was the Hockey News, and it's relatively accepted in Canada that they're probably one of the top 3 teams in terms of young talent in their system. They're consistently ranked as having the best drafts over the last 2 or 3 years in the NHL, and for us that's important. The NHL drafts players at such a young age that if a guy got drafted 3 years ago, he probably went back to juniors or went to college, and now he's starting to get ready to play pro. So those guys that they send us are guys that probably were drafted 2 or 3 years ago, and we have to look at what talent came out of those drafts, in their system. And Winnipeg's got some great talent coming out. What they do in Winnipeg is obviously we want to see them win, but what's more important to us is what's in their system.
From talking with other players in the past, I've learned that the sort of independent player is their playing style is so vastly different from a college player. Can you sort of walk me through of how the I guess your scouting department or the higher up leagues, their scouting department sort of alleviates that initial hesitation for a college guy over somebody who's played in juniors or an independent player?
Yeah, I don't think there's as big of a difference between junior and college as there used to be. Junior kids were always tougher, and college kids, you can't fight in college. You can't, so. But the days of kids fighting and getting into the NHL just because they can fight, those days are pretty much over now. So I don't think there's as big of a difference as there used to be. Between the two kids. The junior kids play more games than they do at college level. But again, there's been some great college players coming out of this league and stuff. So it's really not as big of a difference as everyone thinks it is. It's really, and I know Jason and I have had these conversations, is that it's really what's the kid about? Is he coming with thing in his head that he wants to do his best, and he wants to play hard every night, and he wants to move up. And that's the key, is finding those guys that are hungry, that come to the ECHL, that work hard, and maybe a year or 2, maybe not even that long, gets to move to the next level and then to the NHL level. So those are the kinds of kids that you're looking for, whether they play in college or juniors.
Can you tell me a little bit about why the ownership group was so passionate about getting hockey back to Jacksonville, especially considering the history of past franchises? I could argue that the Barracudas were, given the short end of the stick, but other franchises haven't lasted as long as we'd like, as hockey fans would like. Why Jacksonville?
You know what? It's a couple of things. One is, when we approached SMG and the city about bringing hockey back here, they made it clear from the beginning that they would love to see us bring the hockey and the 36 states to the sports complex. But they also wanted to make sure that it was going to be a win-win situation, and that the city wasn't going to incur any costs, additional costs, or anything like that. So we were able to work out a lease deal that we think, both sides think, is a very fair deal, and gives us an opportunity to be successful. I don't know if the Barracudas had that back then. From what I understand, their
No,
lease
they
was
they
very
didn't.
expensive, and yeah, I know Jules and I have talked about it a few times, but so really we had to find one of our biggest expenses is leasing the building, and so we had to find a deal that we could be comfortable with. Firstly, secondly was just we took a look at the growth and the continuing growth of the city, and see that people are coming here, they're moving here, they're not retiring here, they're moving down here to work, and a lot of those people are coming from hockey hotbeds, which again, 7 or 8 years ago wasn't necessarily here. So we really were encouraged by that. And we just, I was in Orlando for a while working, owning part owner of the Silver Bears. And and my daughter actually lives here. And every time I came up to visit her, I just wondered why there was no hockey here. And then started a project to bring hockey here. And here we are.
Well, on that similar
2 days
note,
away from opening night.
Oh, we're definitely excited. But you also said in an interview that there are two types of people, hockey fans and future hockey fans. How do you plan on attracting those future hockey fans in Jacksonville?
We are creating entertainment. When someone comes to one of our games, if they're not a hockey fan, they're still going to have a good time. We're between the various promotions we're working on right now and the in-arena game presentation. That building has lots of bells and whistles that we're going to be able to use, and make sure that everyone that comes has a good time and enjoys themselves. And in my opinion, there's no better sport to watch in person than professional hockey. So when you've got all that going on, and then the hockey game itself, we just want people to leave that building and say, "Wow, I'm hooked. I've got to come back." And that's our job. That's what we have to do. And we did it well in other non-traditional markets I've been in Orlando. I did it in Phoenix with the old Roadrunners. Where people just came in and they said, "Wow, that was a lot of fun. The ticket prices are reasonable. Let's go do this on a regular basis as a family." And that's what we'll be doing. So we're going to have two types of people in the arena. We'll have those that are hockey fans, and then those that will become hockey fans.
Well, speaking of your...
Or at the very least, IceMen fans.
Yes. Well, speaking of those, the other franchises in the other cities that you've helped to build, what learning experiences are you bringing from those cities to ensure that the Jacksonville franchise will last for years to come?
Several things. One is, we want it to be well funded. If you go into any business and you expect to make huge profits right off the bat, then you're probably not living in reality. You've got to build a business, and that's what we'll do here, and building the IceMen brand and the name and the fans and everything else. So that's one. So we definitely wouldn't have done this if we were not funded well to sustain some losses. Now we're ahead in most of our numbers, so so the investors are happy. But that's the first thing. And the second thing is you've got to look at it as as I said before, most of our fans will have those who are thrilled because we're bringing hockey back, and then we'll have the other half in the arena that may be coming for the first time or is not doesn't know hockey real well, but they have to have a good time, and especially their kids have to have a good time.
Yes.
And that's what we'll be doing. If you bring, and I'm a dad. My daughter's grown now, but I know if we brought Liz to an event or something when she was younger, and we loved it, but she didn't like it, we wouldn't go back because we don't want her being miserable for 2.5 hours.
Right.
So we'll do a lot of different things, much like the Jumbo Shrimp have done. Since they've taken over, Ken Babby's taken over that team. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a great night out, and people are going to have a lot of fun.
Is there any correlation to working with the other minor league teams in town? Are you guys going to be maybe doing? I remember back in the day with the Barracudas, there would sometimes be like a 2-for-1, like go to the Suns game during the day and then come over to the arena and watch the Barracudas. Are you guys planning on doing anything like that
Yeah,
with the other teams?
we've actually had some great conversations. Ken Batty's become a friend of mine now, and he's also a hockey fan too.
Nice.
That helps. But so we'll do some stuff with the shrimp. We're trying to figure out what all that means. We'll coordinate. We'll do some promotions. Also, we've had conversations with Jeff at the Sharks, and then we'll probably end up doing some promotions with the Jags as well. I used to work with a lot of people who are at the Jags now. We all work together at the Florida Panthers,
Nice.
and then finally. Robert Palmer is someone I know very well, and he just bought the Armada, so give him a chance to breathe, and then and then talk to him about how we can work together. The better sports town that Jacksonville becomes, the better it is for all of us.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be uncommon to see someone at a Sharks game or any of the other teams, and also see them at IceMen games. And the same thing for our fans that go to those other teams as well. So, we're all in the same market, and I love working with the other teams in the market because we want to build Jacksonville, continue to build it into a great sports town.
And finally, for fans that are new to hockey or haven't paid much attention since the Barracudas, what are some interesting notes about the upcoming season that they should be aware of?
Well, opening night's October 14th, and we're going to have a lot of surprises at opening night. We also are jumping on the bandwagon for the Florida-Georgia game. We play that Thursday prior to the Florida-Georgia game, and we're playing Atlanta, so it's Florida-Georgia on ice.
Nice.
We're also going to have, we'll be wearing blue and orange jerseys, Gator colors, to show our support for the Gators, and the Atlanta fans can wear whatever they want. And we'll be marketing to all those people that are in their RVs and saying, hey, how about a fun night out? Watch Florida, Georgia on ice. And then we're also going to have a Florida versus Georgia college hockey game right after our game that same night. So, so those kinds of things, those kinds of fun promotions, we'll be doing Faith and Family nights. We'll doing a Marvel night. Just every night's going to be something a little different.
That's incredible. Well, I mean, you answered more than enough on all of my questions. Is there anything that I should have asked but didn't ask?
I don't think so. I think that the key really is just to let people know that, and I say this all the time, is that, if you've never seen hockey live and never been to a live hockey game, you got to check this out because I guarantee that the people are going to have fun. It's going to be something that they're just going to say, "Wow, I can't believe I waited this long." The Tampa Bay Lightning do an incredible job at they've done an incredible job at creating Lightning/hockey fans. And that same atmosphere they have at their game, minus the live electric lightning bolts that we can't do in this arena. We want to create that same atmosphere. I grew up in New York. I went to Ranger games, and there was nothing like going to New York Ranger games. It was so much better than going to any of the other teams in New York because the atmosphere was just so electrifying. And Tampa's created that in their arena. Better than most NHL teams I've seen. And Nashville did it this year in the playoffs as well. And that's what we want to do here. The only difference between us and them is that we have affordable ticket prices.
Yes. And that goes a long way here in Jacksonville. Well, Bob, I really appreciate you joining me for this interview.